Hello everyone and welcome back to our Drarry Advent Calendar with the wonderful story A Husband for Christmas by Jolly Love. Today we are at day 10, Sleep in Heavenly Peace. It was late when Draco came home from his last meeting. Tim had been nice, really, but nothing could have topped Simon's sincerity and the way he could make Draco forget about all the things happening around him. And so, when he entered the Manor again, he knew who he wanted to go forward with. Luckily, the decision wasn't all too bad. The next few days he was going to get to know Simon more. In fact, he walked straight to his office and sent an owl to the matchmaker with his decision. Next, he walked through the house to find Scorpius, but wherever he looked he couldn't find Potter nor his son. Finally, when he walked by the door to his son's room, he decided to look in there and stopped quickly. The picture in there was the sweetest thing he had ever seen. Harry sat on a huge armchair, book in hand and clearly sleeping. On his lap sat Scorpius, leaning against his chest, also deeply asleep. Both looked so calm and relaxed. Now that he thought about it, he had never seen Harry as relaxed as he was right now. Smiling softly, Draco snuck closer and grabbed his son. In the process, he also woke up Harry, who inhaled deeply and rubbed his eyes. "Shh," Draco said quietly so he wouldn't start talking and waking up Scorpius as well. He placed his son on the bed, placed a kiss on his forehead, and walked to the door, where Harry stood right now.
"Sorry for falling asleep. I usually don't do that."
Harry apologized once they were out of his room and had a good distance to it.
Draco smiled. "Don't worry, Lord Potter. It took longer today than I thought. Please accept my apology."
Harry inclined his head, and they soon stood in front of the entrance. There Harry hesitated, but turned to Draco nonetheless.
"If it would be easier for you, Lord Malfoy, I could also take Scorpius for a day and overnight." "Well,
That made it sound as if Harry suspected he was going to have sex with Simon as soon as possible. That wasn't in the Pure Blood rulebook. Then again, Simon had said himself that he wasn't following said book.
"I will get back to you on that. It might be easier to get to know someone when one isn't pressed for time."
Wishing a good night, Harry left, and Draco frowned at the closed door for a while until he made his way to his room. However, he couldn't sleep, and so for a few hours into the night he got up again and walked to the west part of the manor, hoping to find someone else awake. "Draco, darling." He closed the door and looked up to find Astoria in the portrait, smiling back at him. Tears rushed into his eyes, and he suppressed a sob that tightened in his chest.
"Astoria, I thought you didn't like it around here anymore."
She smiled and slowly shook her head. "Of course I want to be here. Scorpius still comes to talk to me. He told me all about his new caregiver. I'm glad he finally found someone he likes." Draco nodded and wet his lips while tears started running down his cheeks. No, he wasn't ready to give her up. Not even close. "Oh, darling," Astoria said quietly. "It's all going to be fine. I know you're hurting right now, but it will end someday." Draco gave a sudden sob and tried to get himself under control again as he angrily brushed away the tears.
"I just miss you terribly."
Astoria nodded. "I know, Draco, darling. I know." Turning away from her, he brushed the last tears out of his face and composed himself again.
"I'm sorry."
"Don't be, darling." Astoria smiled sadly. "You're allowed to be sad. You don't have to hide behind a wall of emotionless facial expressions. We both know that it's not healthy, and Scorpius needs to be able to show his emotions. I don't want him to end up like all our ancestors." Nodding, Draco smiled weakly.
"It's just too hard when it comes to you. I don't think I'll ever be able to talk about it with him. Without—"
He felt another round of tears fill up his eyes.
"Without breaking down."
Astoria seemed to want to reach out and smiled weakly. "Oh, poor man. I love you both so much. You both need each other to talk to, right?" Draco brushed the tears out of his eyes to see her again, but she was gone. There must have been too much emotion in here. He didn't blame her. He had seen her trying to reach her arms through the painting. She needed to hug him as much as he needed to hug her. Slowly, Draco walked back to his room, stopping by the kitchen to get some ice cream to eat while he watched whatever romantic comedy movie was left over from Astoria's collection. To be continued.